Hello there, and welcome to today's episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. I am so excited you're here. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I started the Easy EdTech podcast in 2019 to share my favorite tips, tricks, and strategies for technology integration. With over 200 episodes to choose from, including new ones each week, you'll hear stories from my time in the classroom, the work I do now with schools and districts, and updates on my travels to different EdTech events. Each episode is designed to give you ideas you can try yourself, share with a colleague, or bookmark for later in the school year. Don't forget to look for the link to the show notes in the description of this episode. You'll find that link right below the episode summary in every podcast app. This episode is sponsored by my AI in Education membership. Curious about artificial intelligence in education? This membership is designed for teachers and educators passionate about staying ahead of the curve. It offers a comprehensive and curated monthly experience that will keep you up to date on the latest trends in artificial intelligence and tools for the classroom. Join now by heading to my website, classtechtips.com, and tapping on the artificial intelligence button at the top of the page. This week's episode is titled 7 ChatGPT prompts for educators I'm loving right now. And I thought that this would be a great time as we go deeper into the fall season to pause and revisit some of the prompts that I've been using this past year. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to take you through 7 ChatGPT prompts that you could use with other chatbots too, ones that are really helping speed up my workflow, and ones that I've shared with some success with educators over this summer that I think could save you some time too. Now, just to give you a little bit of an update on what I've been working on this summer and into this fall. So this year, I've shared oodles of AI-themed resources on my site. And this summer, I put together a brand new page on my website, all with these AI resources, so they're easy to find, including a free ebook that's there. I've spent time in many different cities on the ground in person chatting about this topic. It was really fun going to Philadelphia for the ISTE conference at the start of the summer, to head down to Florida to work at a conference at Orlando and share a little bit about some time-saving tips. And I even added 2 new states this summer in my travels, thanks to some of these conversations around artificial intelligence. I made it to Kansas. I made it to Missouri. I just have 4 states left. You can message me on Instagram or Twitter if you want to find out what they are, but I just have a few states left. And so I've really gotten around for in-person, so traveling around, talking about this topic and sharing some favorites, and then plenty of webinars and virtual pieces. And of course, my membership for the 100 or so educators that are in that one, where I do my monthly updates with what's new in AI. So although if you of course follow the blog, you already know this, although I am still sharing plenty of favorites on creativity in the classroom, formative assessment, curating resources, and some tips for making the most of EdTech, this concept of AI has really been at the forefront of not only my own workflow and trying to be productive throughout the day, but my conversations with other educators who might be in a different environment, who might be in the classroom right now, or might be supporting a group of educators as a coach or an administrator. So it's definitely been a fun spring, summer, and now fall thinking about artificial intelligence and education. So I thought that I would give you 7 prompts that I'm just loving right now, loving to use myself, loving sharing with others. And I put ChatGPT in the title of today's episode because it really is the most popular of these chatbot tools tools. It's definitely not the only one. Bard from Google is another favorite. You might use Bard at your school right now. There are some educators I spoke with over the summer that they were, really running all things Google in their school or district. So they have that admin console available to them, and they were enabling Bard for the educators or the adult users, not for the kids, but for adult users in their school and district. So you might use Google Bard for some of these prompts, or you might use the tool Claude, like Claude Monet. That's one that I've really loved using this year. They may have a wait list depending on when you go to click on it and try it out. It's just Claude, CLAUDE.ai. So it might have a wait list when you go check it out, but it's worth looking at too. I really like the interface, and it does some things that are a little bit different than ChatGPT. So wanted to give that one a little bit of an honorable mention. So let's jump into these 7. I'm going to go through them, tell you why I love them, give some examples of how you might use them. And if you want the list of these, just head over to the blog, classtechtips.com. I put together a page for every single episode. This is episode 234. So you'll see the prompts on that page, and then you'll also see some links to other AI resources. So if you're on the go today, just make a mental note or pause the episode and do a little voice note, a reminder for yourself that you can find all of these on the blog, on my website. And of course, the link is in the show notes wherever you're listening to this episode. So first up is one that I've been trying out in many different ways. And this one essentially is a prompt that a sentence that you add to a prompt that you're writing. And it's ask me questions to give me a better response. So what you would do is you'd put in your prompt, like what you want it to generate. This could be anything. It could be give me ideas for this project I want to do with students, or write out a 14-day plan for teaching this topic, or help me plan a vacation in this city. Like it could be anything. And then you add in this ask me questions to give me a better response. And what it will do is it will give you a handful of questions. You don't have to answer all of them, but if you do respond and give your answers to those questions, now it's kind of filling in the blanks. It's not guessing. It's using your responses to give a better output. So for example, I was thinking about, we're not ending up doing it, but we were thinking about doing a fall trip this year. And we were postponing it a bit, but over the summer I was playing around and I said, I want to go on a trip, right, with these 2 family members. We are looking for this kind of vacation. Ask me questions so that you can help plan this trip for us. And so it came back and it said, what is your budget? How many days do you want to go? Do you only want nonstop travel? Which airport are you leaving from? Yes, all these questions that I could have put in the prompt, but I might have just not even thought of to put in, right? So it was really great for narrowing down your response. Now that's kind of a personal or funny way to include it, but you might have said, I'm teaching a unit on persuasive writing to 8th graders, and I want your help, right? Ask me questions to give me a better response. And so it might say, how many days or how long is each lesson going to be? What are your standards? And so you might not answer all of those questions, but simply putting in, ask me questions to give me a better response is going to be huge. It's a prompt that I'm loving right now. And I encourage you to try it for anything that's going to go along with a more robust output. Next up is another prompt that you would add to a longer ask of the chatbot, and that is adding an example. So you would put in what you're looking for, your descriptor, your input, and then you would say, here is an example. So one thing you might do, right, is you might say, I'm looking for activity ideas for my 2nd grade students to explore fractions. An example of an activity they love is, and then you would put in one activity that you used in the past, and it's going to use that example to help give you better responses. So you put in your descriptor, and then you give 1 or 2 examples, and then the output is going to be even stronger. longer. Now, there might be times where you're just like, I don't even know, right? Like, I don't have an example. That's why I went to this chatbot to ask for help. So what you could do is you could write your first like open-ended without an example. And then if it gives you one response that you like the most, you could say, this is the best on this list. Give me more like this. So that's kind of a spin or a bonus on our list of 7 here. Our third prompt to try is a don't include. So this is kind of almost like an opposite of the here's an example. So you might say, give me a list of discussion prompts around this topic. Don't include, and then you put in a vocabulary word that might be one that you're deciding not to use or you haven't introduced yet or might be confusing for students. You could even be silly, like say, don't include any responses that have the letter W in it. I don't know why you would do that, but you could, right? But adding that don't include can really help narrow the responses. So for example, if you say, give me a list of activity ideas that I can do with a group of 8th graders, don't include any that have QR codes or that use QR codes, right? So it could be anything that you just want to eliminate from your responses. So you could put this in your initial prompt, or you might see like 10 responses come through and say, oh, half of these are not what I'm looking for. And then you could say the don't include whatever that type of thing is. Sometimes you won't know ahead of time until you kind of see some things pop up. Number 4 on our list is all about revisions and editing. So if you've used ChatGPT or a chatbot to revise your work, you might have popped in or copy and pasted something that you've written and said, make this more friendly or proofread this for me, right? Like, so you might already be using a prompt like that. I know I've shared that in earlier blog posts. What you might want to add in, this is where number 4 comes in, is the show me the edits you've made in bold. Now, I love this because I like to see where my edits are. I want to know exactly what the updates are, what were the suggestions that the chatbot has given me. Because sometimes I think they're good, but other times, like there might be a vocabulary word I just would never use. And so it's not going to sound natural or authentic. So when you do this, it will not only edit whatever piece of writing you put in, but it'll show you the edits in bold. That way you can almost like accept the changes as if you're in a Google Doc or not. So that one is show me the edits you've made in bold. Number 5 of our 7 is one of my go-tos. It's something I'm loving right now, and I've shared it with educators in the workshops I've been doing as well. And that is give me unexpected responses. So you type in your prompt and then you add in the give me unexpected responses. So instead of giving you just kind of like a plain traditional response, it might give you a few things that are a little wild, a little bit in left field. So this is great if you're asking for something like discussion prompts or activity ideas or ways to introduce something new. And then you add in that give me unexpected responses. This is really going to give you some things that are just a little novel, a little new, and might be more exciting to share with a group of students, especially if you've taught the same thing for a long time. I know I taught 5th grade for about 6 years. And so if I was going to ask a question, it might give me kind of obvious things like, oh yeah, I've done that before, right? But when you say give me unexpected responses, it's going to give you some things that are a little bit in left field. And I think it's a great way to make the most of this chatbot space. So far on our list of 7, we've gotten through 5. The first one was ask me questions to give me a better response. The second was here's an example. The third is the don't include. Number 4 is show me the edits you've made in bold. And the last one was give me unexpected responses. Number 6 is one I love. I mean, I don't want to say I use this every day, but there's some days I use it 3 or 4 times. And then there's some days I don't use it at all. So probably it averages to 7 to 10 times over the course of the week. And this one is add emojis. So I love emojis. I love emojifinder.com. I think it was at FETC this past year, the FETC conference, that I did a session that was like 22 ways to use emojis or something fun like that. I love emojis, but it can be a little time consuming to like go out and find the right one, especially if you're just moving fast or you're not exactly sure what you want. So emojis are fantastic visual cues. I've shared them before on the podcast why I love emojis. If you love emojis and you want more emoji resources, check the show notes. I'll put a couple links in there, or just send me a message on Instagram and say, tell me more about emojis and I'll send you some favorite things. But if you put in text, if you put in a list, if you put in really anything and you say add emojis, it will add emojis throughout whatever that piece of text is. Now, you may want to get more specific, like add one emoji to the beginning of each line, right? Or add one emoji after each item on this list. But simply putting in add emojis is a great start. And of course, you could refine that a bit. And this is what I'm absolutely loving right now. Now, the last one, number 7 on this list, is something that has been super useful. I've shared this a bunch in workshops. So I've been doing these 2-part webinar virtual workshop series for ASCD. I've been doing them for a few different districts and schools working with, and I've done it in person in workshops this summer too, which is sharing images, how to generate images with AI. And I did that for a conversation, or I should say a solo episode of the podcast earlier this fall. I talked about why you might want to use AI to generate images, why I love it. There's a bunch of different tools you can use. You might use Adobe Express, Adobe Firefly, you might use Microsoft Bing or Midjourney or DALL-E, right? There's a bunch of them. But coming back to ChatGPT, you can say, describe images to include in a presentation about whatever your thing is. So what this will do is it will give you a list of images that you might want to include, but it's going to describe them for you. So you can then take those descriptions as is or tweak them a little bit and pop them into one of these tools that lets you generate an image. So instead of saying, what kind of image do I want? And then thinking about your sentence to describe it, this will just give you some ideas. So if you said, describe images to include in a presentation about composting in the classroom. Well, it's going to tell you, okay, you probably want an image that shows a compost bin. You probably want an image that shows a decomposing apple core, right? So it's going to give you a really good start, and you can either copy and paste or use them as a starting point for generating your own images. So there you have it. Those are 7 ChatGPT prompts for educators that I am loving right now, part of my own workflow, ones I've loved sharing with others, educators this year. I'll put the full list of them on the show notes for today, and you can, of course, take these and run with them. So let's make this EdTech easy with a few key points from the episode. Try a prompt with an extra add-on, like here's an example. Modify prompts so that you can get unexpected responses. Combine prompts in ChatGPT with what you might use in an image generation tool. Remember, you can find the show notes and the full list of resources from today's episode at classtechtips.com/podcast and finding today's episode, number 234. This episode is sponsored by my AI in Education membership. Curious about artificial intelligence in education? This membership is designed for teachers and educators passionate about staying ahead of the curve. It offers a comprehensive and curated monthly experience that will keep you up to date on the latest trends in artificial intelligence and tools for the classroom. Join now by heading to my website, classtechtips.com, and tapping on the artificial intelligence button at the top of the page. Thank you for tuning in to another Tuesday episode of the Easy EdTech podcast. Stay tuned this fall for a few bonus episodes. Instead of Sundays like we've done this past year, they're going to shift to Fridays. Not every Friday, but every once in a while. So make sure you're listening on a podcast app where you can hit the follow button. That way, every new episode, not just Tuesdays, but the bonus ones too, will pop up for you as soon as they go live. And if you want to share an idea from today's episode, maybe with a friend or a colleague, you can send the link to them as a text or even tweet or post it on your favorite social media platform. You can find me there too. Just tag me at Class Tech Tips with any takeaways or questions.